I was lying in intensive care, tubes in my arms when my phone rang with the call that changed everything. The bank manager's voice trembled as he spoke. What he told me sent my heart monitor into a frenzy. My name is Patricia Henderson, and I am 72 years old. I have lived in Seattle my entire life, raised two children, built a beautiful home, and saved diligently for 50 years. At this moment, I would like to know where you are viewing this from. Please share your city in the comments, as what happened to me could happen to anyone, anywhere. It all began 3 weeks ago on a Tuesday morning. I was enjoying my coffee when the chest pain struck, sharp, crushing pain that brought me to my knees. My daughter Sandra found me collapsed in the kitchen. An ambulance rushed down our quiet street as neighbors gathered on their porches. The hospital admitted me directly to intensive care. A heart attack, a serious one. The doctors informed me I had been mere minutes away from death. For 5 days, I drifted in and out of consciousness, surrounded by beeping machines and anxious faces. Sandra and my son Michael took turns sitting beside my bed, holding my hand, assuring me that everything would be fine. I believed them. I felt that God was helping me. By day 6, I was stable but weak. The doctors wanted to keep me for another week for observation. My children insisted on staying close, assisting with everything. Sandra brought my mail, and Michael managed my bills. They were incredibly attentive and caring. Everyone remarked on how fortunate I was to have such devoted children. On day 7, my phone rang at 2 p.m. The nurse handed it to me, and I recognized a voice I had known for 23 years. Mrs. Henderson, this is Thomas Harrison from First National Bank. I need to speak with you urgently about your accounts. My heart rate quickened, and the monitors beeped faster. What's wrong? I managed to whisper. Ma'am, we received a request this morning to change the mailing address on all your accounts. The new address is in Spokane. We also received transfer authorizations for your savings accounts, totaling $1.6 million. The room began to spin. I didn't authorize anything, I said, my voice cracking. I know, ma'am. That's why I'm calling. The signatures appeared off to me. I have processed your transactions for over 2 decades. I recognize your signature, and these do not match. But Mrs. Henderson, he paused, taking a deep breath, the request included your daughter's contact information. She listed herself as your power of attorney. My blood ran cold. I never gave her power of attorney, I whispered. I suspected as much. Mrs. Henderson, I am obligated to process this request by Friday unless you come in personally to stop it. Can you do that? I looked at the IV in my arm, the monitors, the tubes. I am in intensive care. Then I will stall as long as I can, but you must act quickly. He hung up. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my entire world crumbling around me. My children were attempting to steal everything I had while I fought for my life. I felt an overwhelming sense of betrayal, a weight crushing my chest. My own children, the babies I had nurtured, the teenagers I had sacrificed for, the adults I had supported through every crisis, were robbing me blind while I lay dying. The nurse rushed in as my heart monitor went haywire. She adjusted my medication, instructed me to calm down, and asked if I was in pain. I nodded, but it was not physical pain. It was something far worse. I needed to think. I needed to plan. But my mind was clouded from medication and shock. That evening, Sandra visited with flowers and a bright smile. How are you feeling, Mom? You look so much better today. I scrutinized her face, those same green eyes I had gazed into countless times, the same smile she had worn since childhood. How could someone so familiar suddenly feel like a complete stranger? I'm tired, I replied cautiously. The doctors say I need rest. Of course. Do not worry about anything at home. Michael and I are handling everything, she said, patting my hand. We have your mail, your bills, everything. You just focus on getting better. Each word felt like a knife. That's so thoughtful, I replied, keeping my voice weak. What would I do without you both? You will never have to find out, Mom. We are always here for you. She kissed my forehead and left. I watched her walk away, a designer purse on her shoulder, the purse I had bought her last Christmas for $800, money I had saved from my teacher's pension. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about the past 5 years since Robert died, how Sandra had suddenly become so interested in my finances, how she had suggested I needed help managing my accounts, how Michael had brought over important papers for me to sign while I was ill with the flu. Had I signed something then? I had been so sick, with a fever of 103, barely able to see straight. Michael had stood over me, pointing to signature lines saying it was just updated beneficiary forms. Had that been the power of attorney? The following morning, I called my lawyer's office from the hospital phone. David Morrison had handled Robert's estate. He was sharp, thorough, and most importantly, familiar with my family. Patricia, I heard about your heart attack. How are you holding up? David, I need you to come to the hospital today. Don't call my children. Don't inform anyone of your visit. And please bring everything necessary to revoke a power of attorney. There was silence on the line. Then what happened? They are trying to steal everything. $1.6 million. They believe I am too unwell to notice. His voice turned cold and professional. I will be there in an hour. Do not sign anything. Do not let them know you are aware. And Patricia, we will stop this. After I hung up, Michael arrived with breakfast. Pancakes from my favorite diner, orange juice, coffee made just how I like it. I thought you could use some real food instead of hospital fare, he said cheerfully. I looked at my son, tall and successful, a pharmaceutical sales representative earning 6 figures. Yet somehow that was not enough. He needed my money too. Thank you, sweetheart, I said, accepting the coffee with trembling hands. You are so good to me. Mom, when you get out of here, perhaps you should come stay with one of us for a while, just until you are stronger. My stomach churned. They wanted me under their watch, controlled and isolated. That's sweet, but I will be fine at home. I have my neighbors and my church friends. Mom, you collapsed alone. What if it happens again? We would feel terrible if something occurred and we were not there to assist. I will think about it, I replied, injecting just enough weakness into my voice. He seemed satisfied. We engaged in small talk about his work, his wife, Jennifer, their children, my grandchildren. I thought about them. Emma, 9 years old, and Jason, 7. Did they know their father was a thief? Would they grow up believing this behavior was acceptable? David arrived at 11, carrying his briefcase and wearing his courtroom demeanor. Michael had just left. Tell me everything, David said, pulling up a chair. I recounted the bank manager's call, the address change to Spokane, the transfer authorizations, and Sandra's fraudulent power of attorney claim. David took notes, his jaw tightening with each detail. Do you remember signing any power of attorney documents? No, but Michael brought papers when I had the flu last winter, in February, I believe. He said they were beneficiary updates. Did you read them? I tried, but I could not see clearly. Fever medication. He kept insisting it was routine, that I needed to update everything after Robert passed away. My voice broke. I trusted him. David, he is my son. David's expression softened for a moment. I understand, but right now we need to focus on protecting your assets. First, we will revoke any power of attorney, whether legitimate or forged. Second, we will go to the bank tomorrow and stop these transfers. Third, we will document everything for potential criminal charges. Criminal charges against my own children. Patricia, they are committing bank fraud and elder abuse. If that power of attorney is forged, it is also forgery and identity theft. This is not a family dispute. This is a serious crime. I closed my eyes. My children, criminals. What do we do? Tonight, you rest. Tomorrow, we need to get you released from the hospital. Doctor's approval, or against medical advice, your choice. Then we will walk into First National Bank and shut this down. I will contact Mr. Harrison and inform him of our arrival. They will know I have discovered the truth. Yes, and that is when things will become complicated. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Sandra's smile, Michael's pancakes, 50 years of birthdays, Christmas mornings, and family dinners. Then I considered them forging documents, lying to banks, and planning to take everything while I fought for my life. I am prepared, I stated. I want my lawyer present when I confront them. I want everything documented. And David, I want them to understand exactly what they have done. He nodded. I will arrange everything. Try to rest. Tomorrow will be a long day. That night, Sandra called to check on me. Her voice was honeyed and full of concern. I played along, feigning weakness and gratitude. After hanging up, I stared at the phone in my hand. How many times had I spoken to my daughter without realizing she was plotting against me? How many concerned phone calls were merely to ensure I was still too unwell to notice what they were doing? The nurse entered for evening rounds. "How is your pain level, Mrs. Henderson?" "About a 7, I lied. The physical pain was manageable, but the emotional pain was off the charts. "I can increase your medication." "No, thank you. I need to stay clear-headed." She gave me a concerned look but nodded and departed. I could not afford to be sedated. Tomorrow, I needed to be sharp, strong, and ready to fight. I barely slept. Each time I closed my eyes, memories flooded back. Sandra at 5 years old, crying after falling off her bike, me cleaning her scraped knee and kissing it better. Michael at 12, nervous before his first middle school dance, me straightening his tie and telling him he looked handsome. Their graduations, their weddings, the births of my grandchildren. Where had it all gone wrong? Morning arrived too slowly and too quickly. Dr. Patel came at 7 for rounds. "Mrs. Henderson, your numbers look good. Heart rate stable, blood pressure improving, but I would like to keep you for at least 3 more days." "Dr. Patel, I need to leave today. I have urgent business matters that require my immediate attention." He frowned. "You have had a serious cardiac event. You need rest and observation. I understand the risks, but this cannot wait. I will sign whatever release forms you require." We debated for 20 minutes. Finally, he agreed to discharge me with strict conditions: minimal physical activity, scheduled follow-up appointments, a long list of medications, and a stern warning about the dangers of stress. "Whatever this business is, Mrs. Henderson, it better be worth risking your health." "It is worth everything," I replied quietly. David arrived at 9 with clothes from my home. He had obtained my spare key from the neighbor, professional slacks, a blazer, sensible shoes, my battle armor. Getting dressed exhausted me. My hands trembled as I buttoned the blouse. David had to assist with my shoes. I looked in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized myself, pale, thin, aged 10 years in 1 week, but my eyes were clear and resolute. "Ready?" David asked. "One thing first." I pulled out my phone and called Sandra. "Mom, is everything okay?" "Everything is fine, sweetheart. I am being discharged today. The doctors say I'm doing so well." "That is wonderful. Do you need me to pick you up?" "No. A friend from church is coming. I just wanted you to know I will be home this afternoon." "Okay. I will stop by tonight to check on you." "That would be lovely." I hung up and looked at David. Now they know I'm mobile. They will panic. They will try to expedite the transfers. Good. Panicked people make mistakes. "Mr. Nig, Harrison is expecting us at 10:30. He has flagged all your accounts to require in-person authorization for any changes." The hospital wheelchair felt like a throne as they rolled me to David's car. I was weak, exhausted, and terrified, but I was also filled with anger. Anger that I would soon learn could be more powerful than any medicine. The drive to First National Bank took 15 minutes. David kept glancing at me, likely worried I might have another heart attack in his Mercedes. "Are you sure you are up for this?" he asked. "David, I spent 50 years saving every dollar. I worked as a teacher for 35 years. I took summer jobs. I clipped coupons. Robert and I never took expensive vacations. We drove used cars. We saved, invested, and sacrificed to secure our future in old age. That money represents every hour I stood in front of a classroom, every weekend I graded papers, every sacrifice I made. I am ready for this." First National Bank stood at the corner of 5th and Madison, a sturdy brick building where I had conducted business since 1978. I knew every teller, every manager. They had celebrated with me when Robert and I paid off our mortgage. They had assisted me in managing finances after his passing. Mr. Harrison met us in the lobby. He was 60, gray-haired, and appeared genuinely distressed. "Mrs. Henderson, thank goodness you are all right. When I heard about your heart attack," he shook his head. "Let's talk privately." His office was quiet and professional, adorned with family photos. He closed the door and retrieved a thick folder. "Here's everything. The address change request came in Monday. Your daughter called first, claiming you were in intensive care and had asked her to manage your affairs. She provided what she claimed was power of attorney documentation. Then she submitted written requests to change your mailing address to a Spokane address and to transfer funds from your 3 savings accounts into a new checking account." "Let me see the power of attorney," David requested. Mr. Harrison slid the document across his desk. David examined it, then showed it to me. My signature was present, but something was amiss. "This is dated February 14th, David remarked. "Patricia, is this your signature?" I looked closely. It was similar, but not quite right. The P in Patricia, I always loop it twice. This one only looped once. The H in Henderson had a different angle. "It's forged," I declared. "That is not my signature. I never signed any power of attorney." Mr. Harrison's expression grew grave. "That was my suspicion, Mrs. Henderson. I have processed your signatures for 23 years. I recognize your handwriting. This was close, but it was not correct. That is why I called you instead of processing the request." "What about the transfer authorizations?" David inquired. "Also forged, the same handwriting. They were attempting to move funds in stages, $200,000 this week, another $300,000 next week, spreading it out to avoid immediate scrutiny. The full transfers would have cleared by the end of the month, $1.6 million gone. My entire life savings." "Can we stop it completely?" I asked. "Already done. I have flagged all your accounts. Nothing can move without your in-person authorization. I have also documented everything and reported the suspected fraud to our security department." David leaned forward. "Mr. Harrison, we need copies of everything. Every document, every request, every communication with Sandra Henderson, time-stamped and certified." Mr. Harrison nodded. "I will have everything ready within the hour. Mrs. Henderson, I need you to sign new authorization forms. We will also establish additional security measures, password verification, and dual authentication for any transactions over $5,000. My hands trembled as I signed the real documents, my authentic signature with the proper loops and angles. The signature of a woman who had worked diligently for 50 years, who had never stolen anything, who had raised her children to understand right from wrong. Apparently, that last lesson had failed spectacularly. "There is something else," Mr. Harrison said quietly. "Your daughter called this morning, twice, very insistent about when the transfers would be processed. She appeared agitated when I informed her of the verification delays. She knows time is running out," David remarked. "Mrs. Henderson is regaining her health. Once she fully recovers, she will notice the missing funds. They needed to act quickly." "What happens now?" I inquired. David's expression turned serious. "Now we go to the police. This constitutes bank fraud, forgery, identity theft, and elder abuse. These are serious felonies. Prison? My children?" I must have looked pale because Mr. Harrison quickly poured me a glass of water. "Mrs. Henderson, are you all right? I am not sure I can do this. They attempted to steal $1.6 million from you while you were fighting for your life in intensive care," David said, his voice gentle yet firm. "This is not a misunderstanding. This is calculated, premeditated theft. They forged documents, lied to banks, and planned to take everything while you fought for your life." "What would I have done?" I whispered. "If they had succeeded, you would have lost your home," Mr. Harrison said quietly. "Your savings, your security, your independence. At 72, following a major heart attack, you would have been financially devastated. You would likely have become dependent on them, which may have been part of their plan." The full horror washed over me. They were not just stealing money. They were stealing my entire future, my freedom, my ability to live independently. They were going to make me reliant on them, the very people who had robbed me. If you are enjoying this story and wish to hear more like it, please hit the subscribe button. Your support means everything. And trust me, you will not want to miss what happens next. I took a deep breath. "David, call the police. I want to file charges. I want everything documented, and I want to be present when they discover I know." "Are you absolutely certain?" I reflected on the forged signatures, the Spokane address, the carefully orchestrated transfers, and the phone calls to the bank. Sandra's sweet voice inquiring about my health while planning to rob me blind. "I am certain they made their choice. Now they must face the consequences." David made the call. Within 30 minutes, 2 detectives arrived at the bank. Detective Sarah Mills and Detective James Rodriguez. They were from the Financial Crimes Unit, experienced and professional. "Mrs. Henderson, we understand you wish to file charges against your children for attempted financial fraud," Detective Mills stated. "Yes, I will share everything." I sat in that conference room at the bank and recounted every detail: the heart attack, the intensive care, the bank manager's call, the forged power of attorney, every lie, every manipulation. Detective Rodriguez took notes while Detective Mills recorded everything. They were thorough, asking questions about dates, times, and specific conversations. David provided the legal documents, and Mr. Harrison supplied the bank records. Mrs. Henderson, this is a strong case, Detective Mills said. We have documentary evidence of forgery, attempted fraud, and elder abuse. The bank's fraud prevention measures work in your favor. Everything is time-stamped and documented. What happens next? I inquired. We will need to interview your children. We will examine the forged power of attorney document for fingerprints and handwriting analysis. We will trace the Spokane address to see if they had already opened accounts there. This will take a few days to build the full case. I want to confront them, I asserted. Before you arrest them, I want them to know that I am aware. The detectives exchanged glances. Mrs. Henderson, that is not typically advisable, Detective Rodriguez said. Confrontations can be unpredictable and sometimes dangerous. They are not violent. They are simply greedy, and I need to look them in the eyes when they realize their plan has failed. David interjected. What if we arrange a controlled confrontation here at the bank, with Mr. Harrison present and the detectives nearby? Everything will be recorded. Detective Mills contemplated this. It could work. Sometimes direct confrontation leads to confessions. If they believe they are caught, they might admit everything, which would significantly strengthen our case. Set it up, I instructed. Contact them. Inform them there is an urgent issue with my accounts that requires their immediate attention. Tell them I am too weak to come alone and need their support. The irony of that last part stung. Mr. Harrison made the call to Sandra first, placing it on speaker. Miss Henderson, this is Thomas Harrison from First National Bank. We need you and your brother to come to the bank immediately. There is an urgent issue with your mother's accounts. What kind of issue? Sandra's voice was sharp, laced with worry. I would prefer to discuss it in person. It pertains to the power of attorney documentation and the transfer requests. Can you arrive within the hour? Silence ensued. Yes, I will call Michael. We will be right there. She hung up abruptly, too abruptly. She is panicking, David noted. She knows something is wrong. Good, I replied. We waited in Mr. Harrison's office. The detectives positioned themselves in an adjacent conference room with a clear view through the interior windows. David sat beside me, and Mr. Harrison offered coffee and quiet reassurance. My heart raced, but this time it was not due to a heart attack. It was adrenaline, anger, and righteous fury. 40 minutes later, the receptionist buzzed. Mr. Harrison, Sandra Henderson, and Michael Henderson are here. Send them to conference room B, please. We moved to the larger conference room. I sat at the head of the table, David on my right and Mr. Harrison on my left. The detectives observed from the adjacent room. The door opened, and Sandra entered first, dressed in a designer suit, perfect makeup, and a confident smile. Michael followed, tall and professional in business casual. Then they saw me. The color drained from Sandra's face. Michael froze in the doorway. Mom, what are you doing here? You should be in the hospital, Sandra said, her voice rising an octave. Sit down, I instructed quietly. They complied, glancing at David, Mr. Harrison, and each other, calculating and worried. Mr. Harrison called us about some issue with your accounts, Michael began. We came right away to help. Stop, I interjected, my single word slicing through the room. Stop lying. Stop pretending. Stop acting as if you care. Sandra reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Mom, what is wrong? You are not making sense. You have been so sick. I know everything, I declared, each word icy. The forged power of attorney, the address change to Spokane, the transfer authorizations, $1.6 million. Did you really believe I would not find out? A heavy silence enveloped the room. Michael spoke first. Mom, I do not know what you're talking about. We were simply trying to help manage your affairs while you were unwell. You asked us to. I never granted you power of attorney. That document is forged. I slid the paper across the table. That is not my signature. Mr. Harrison knows it. My lawyer knows it. The police know it. Police? Sandra whispered, her face turning pale. Detective Mills and Detective Rodriguez from the Financial Crimes Unit. They are very interested in your activities over the past week. Michael abruptly stood. This is insane. Mom, you are confused. The heart attack, the medications, you are not thinking clearly. We were only trying to protect your money while you were incapacitated. By transferring it all to Spokane, by changing my mailing address so I would not see the bank statements, by forging legal documents. My voice rose. You call that protection? We can explain, Sandra pleaded desperately. It is not what it appears to be. Then explain the Spokane address. Explain why you needed to transfer over $1 million immediately. Explain why you lied to the bank and claimed I had authorized everything. They exchanged glances, and I witnessed the moment they realized they were caught. Sandra's eyes filled with tears, the same tears she had used since childhood to manipulate me. Michael clenched his jaw, his hands forming fists. You know what the worst part is? I said softly. It is not the money. It is that you did this while I was dying. While I was in intensive care with tubes in my arms and machines keeping me alive, you were forging documents and planning to steal everything I had worked 50 years to build. Mom, we needed the money, Michael blurted out. I made some poor investments. I owe people, serious people, if I do not pay them back. Michael, Sandra hissed, shut up, but it was too late. He had just confessed. So, you thought you would steal from your dying mother? I asked. That was your solution? We were going to pay it back, Sandra attempted to explain. Once Michael's situation was resolved, we weren't really stealing. You forged power of attorney documents. You lied to banks. You attempted to transfer over $1 million without my knowledge or consent. That is not borrowing. That is theft. David interjected. It is also bank fraud, forgery, identity theft, and elder abuse. Each of those carries significant prison time. Prison? Sandra's voice rose to a shriek. Mom, you cannot be serious. We are your children. And I am the mother you attempted to rob, I replied, while I was fighting for my life. Michael leaned forward, his expression hardening. Fine. You want the truth? Yes, I needed money. Yes, we acted quickly while you were sick. But think about it, Mom. That money, who are you saving it for anyway? Us, your children, your grandchildren. We are your beneficiaries. That money would eventually come to us. We just needed it now. The sheer audacity took my breath away. So, you decided to take your inheritance early, without asking, without my permission, by forging documents and committing multiple felonies. We did not think you would understand, Sandra said, dabbing at her tears. You are always so careful with money, so frugal. We knew you would say no. So you forged a power of attorney and attempted to steal it while I was unconscious in intensive care? We did not think you would find out so quickly, Michael snapped. Then you realized I would not find out at all, I finished. You thought that by the time I was well enough to check my accounts, the money would be gone, transferred, hidden, and impossible to recover. And what was I supposed to do then? A 72-year-old woman with a weak heart sue my own children? Report you to the police? You believed I would simply accept it and remain silent to avoid scandal. From their expressions, I knew I had struck a chord. Exactly, you would have destroyed me, I continued. Financially, emotionally, completely. I would have lost everything. My home, my security, my independence. I would have become destitute. And you, I looked at my daughter and son, these strangers with familiar faces, would have let that happen to your own mother. Mom, please, Sandra begged. We can fix this. We will return everything. We will tear up the power of attorney. We will make this right. Just do not involve the police. Think about the grandchildren. Think about the family. I am thinking about them, I asserted. I am considering that Emma and Jason deserve to learn that actions have consequences, that stealing is wrong. Family does not grant anyone the right to commit crimes and expect forgiveness. The door opened, and Detectives Mills and Rodriguez entered. Sandra Henderson and Michael Henderson, Detective Mills stated formally. We need you to accompany us for questioning regarding allegations of bank fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. Sandra burst into tears. Michael stood rigid, his face a mask of anger and fear. You are really doing this? He asked. Your own children? You did this, I replied. The moment you forged my signature, the moment you chose money over your mother, you made this choice. They were escorted out. Sandra was sobbing hysterically, while Michael walked with his head held high, but I noticed his hands were shaking. The conference room fell silent. I sat there, feeling ancient and hollow. David placed a hand on my shoulder. "Are you all right?" "I do not know," I admitted. "I just witnessed my children being taken away by the police. How is anyone all right after that?" Mr. Harrison quietly closed the door, granting me privacy. David remained beside me, silent but present. "Did I do the right thing?" I asked. "Yes, absolutely. What they did was criminal. They would have destroyed your entire financial security. You are 72 years old, Patricia. You cannot rebuild a lifetime of savings." I nodded, tears finally flowing freely. I had held them back through everything: the confrontation, the confession, the arrests. Now they fell without restraint. I kept reflecting on their childhood, their first day of school, Michael learning to ride a bike, birthday parties, and Christmas mornings. Where did it all go wrong? "You did not go wrong," David reassured me. "They made choices, bad choices, illegal choices. That is on them, not you." The following weeks were a blur. The district attorney filed formal charges. The evidence was overwhelming: forged documents, bank records, recorded phone calls, and their own partial confessions. Both Sandra and Michael hired expensive lawyers. Michael's debt situation emerged during the investigation. He had lost nearly $400,000 in cryptocurrency investments and owed another $200,000 to some very questionable individuals. Sandra had been aware of this and had helped plan the theft to bail out her brother. The family disintegrated. Michael's wife, Jennifer, filed for divorce and brought Emma and Jason to see me once. Both children cried, not understanding why their father was in trouble. I held them close, assuring them of my love and explaining that sometimes adults make terrible mistakes. Sandra's husband, Tom, knew nothing of the plan and was horrified. They separated. My church community rallied around me. Friends I had known for 40 years brought meals, sat with me, and helped me process everything. Some asked why I pressed charges. I told them the truth, because what they did was wrong. Being family does not grant anyone the right to commit crimes. 3 months after that harrowing day at the bank, both Sandra and Michael accepted plea deals. Sandra received 2 years in prison and 5 years of probation, while Michael received 4 years in prison and 10 years of probation, along with restitution requirements. I attended the courtroom when they were sentenced. Michael would not look at me, while Sandra sobbed throughout the proceedings. The judge addressed them directly. "You targeted your own mother while she was gravely ill. You violated the trust that should exist between parent and child. You committed serious crimes motivated purely by greed. These sentences reflect not just the crime, but the betrayal." I walked out of that courtroom with David by my side. The press attempted to ask questions, but I ignored them. Back at home, I stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I had collapsed 3 months prior. Everything appeared the same, but nothing was as it had been. My children were in prison, my family was shattered, but my savings remained intact. My home was secure, my future was protected. I had survived the heart attack. I had endured the betrayal. I was still standing. Please subscribe to my channel. I will see you in the next video. With love and respect.